Welcome to Geek Zone Wrestling, a podcast by two lifelong wrestling fans who just want to talk wrestling. We are here,
Night
one
one
of WrestleMania.
WrestleMania. Oh my God.
Yeah. Let's just start off by saying night one, fan-freaking-tastic.
Absolutely.
It's going to be very difficult for night two to live up to what night one did.
And night one by far outdid night one of last year. The entrances themselves outdid everything from night one last year.
I mean, there were some matches that were on par, but the show as a whole definitely outdid last year. And last year was supposedly the biggest WrestleMania ever. Now, a couple things before we get into the actually covering the show. Rey Mysterio was supposed to be in a match with El Grande Americano, but got hurt on SmackDown. And while it doesn't look like it's all that serious, he was still not medically cleared to compete so soon. And he was replaced by Rey Fenix. And on top of that, they did make an announcement during the kickoff show that WWE has purchased AAA and will be hosting a Worlds Collide event in June, I believe they said.
I think it was May or June, one of the two. But yeah, they acquired AAA. They also made an announcement for night two.
Now, all they have to deal with is, oh, hey, our car broke down, call AAA.
They also made an announcement about night two where Bayley apparently got attacked during the kickoff show, and she is now out of the tag team title match. So Lyra Valkyria has until tomorrow to figure out her partner.
And also, for night two, Randy Orton has issued an open challenge, sort of like what Seth Rollins did when Cody Rhodes came back.
Yeah.
We have yet to see who will answer that open challenge. We will be waiting until tomorrow. Having said all that, we can now get into the actual night one results and our opinions, favorite parts, etc. Starting with the first match of the card, Jey Uso versus
Gunther
for the World Heavyweight Championship. Going into it, it was a bit one-sided on what we wanted.
Very one-sided. It wasn't a bit. It was overwhelmingly one-sided as to what we wanted.
And luckily for us, we got what we wanted, and Jey Uso is the new World Heavyweight Champion. But this match was by far the best I think I've seen out of Jey Uso during his solo run, just because he did things I've never seen him do before.
I agree wholeheartedly. He really did rise to the occasion on this one. I mean, he started using Gunther's moves against him, and yeah. I mean, it was a brutally fought match. They went at it back and forth.
The two of them seemed to mesh very well together.
They did.
And, really know how to make the other one look good.
And look good they did. I mean, from both sides. Now, there was an argument that was made that...
well, first off, let us say...
Okay. We'll get there.
The way that Jey Uso won was by putting Gunther in the sleeper submission that he has been using on his opponents to put them to sleep.
Including the one he used on Jimmy Uso when he put him out of action.
And made Gunther tap.
Yeah, Gunther tapped as Jey locked in that sleeper hold. And there was an argument that was he tapped out too quick. I don't know that I buy into that. I think it was great for him to tap out. And even immediately afterwards, I got a text from a friend that said, Gunther taking a pin, yeah, I see that, but him tapping out gives a whole different feel to this entire thing. So I honestly think that that was a huge deal for Jay for Gunther to tap out instead of passing out.
I also had a good buddy of mine say he wanted him to pass out, and I don't necessarily agree with him being put to sleep, but I do think he tapped out way too quick. Like I feel like he should have, tried to, wiggle away, but just, he couldn't. So then he's like, girl, fine, and taps. But it seemed like as soon as Jay had it locked in, he just like tapped. Now maybe due to all the excitement, it seemed quicker than I realized, but that's just my take on it.
My take on it is I think it was brilliant. I think it was a great move. It really does give legitimacy to Jey Uso for everything that he's done.
I just felt like 5 to 10 seconds of him, quote unquote, holding
Struggling.
out would have, because I feel like Gunther gave up too quick after everything that he has put people through, everything he's taken. He gets put in a headlock, and it seems like 2 seconds, and he taps. That's
I'm thinking this is going to be a bigger picture storyline. I think it's going to what I think he's going to explain is that he knew when it got locked in, it was only a matter of time. So why take more damage than I have to, and then I can come back and get that title back from you. He knows when it's time to fold, and he knows when it's time to hold, and it wasn't time to hold anymore.
a very good Vegas reference right there.
Thank you.
I'm impressed. And speaking of impressed, I mentioned at the beginning of our talks of this match the fact that I witnessed Jey Uso not only scoop slam but also power
Power
bomb
bomb Gunther.
Gunther during this match. And I brought it up to you, and I brought it up on our TikTok. I just one of the things that has stuck out to me is the fact that Finn Balor powerbombed Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania 35,
Yep.
and just for guys that I don't want to say are scrawny, because Jey Uso and Finn Balor both are, they have more muscle just in their torso area than I have in my entire body. But they are,
Let's be honest. They have more muscle in their little pinky finger than you do in your entire body.
probably not wrong, but they are viewed as smaller guys
Yes.
compared to Bobby Lashley or Gunther, and for them to power bomb them, it is just a show of strength and determination that you don't usually see from guys like that.
Correct.
And it stands out. It's a moment that to take from a WWE term, an OMG moment.
Yeah.
And for him to have done that, for him to trade shots and hits blow for blow with Gunther, for him to freaking just go off, and let's see, what was it? He hit a super kick.
He hit 2 or 3 super kicks.
And then
Power bomb.
Gunther hit him with something, and he came back with a spear, and then Uso splashed him
three
times, and then put him in a sleeper hold. I mean, that's just like, that's a freaking Jacob Fatu finish, right?
Dude, this was a whole new Jey Uso. This was not the charismatic yeet yeet yeet.
Oh, but he still yeeted.
Yeah, he did after the match. He only yeeted once when he walked in, and that was the very last thing he did in the ring.
He did it when he was making his entrance. He yeeted at the top of the steps, and then he walked down, and then he got onto the announce table. Which, by the way, Spanish announce table's back.
Yeah, the Spanish announce table was there. I was so excited.
The only thing is, it ended up not getting broke first.
We'll get to that.
the Spanish announce table is supposed to get broken like 3 or 4 times during a pay per view.
And it's supposed to be the
Or
first one that breaks before the American.
yeah, but it's supposed to get broken. They put it back together and they break it
At any rate,
again. But he stood on that and was doing his Yeety. You know, he ate his Yeeties before he went down Yeet Street. But it was just it was very, I don't want to say more intense, but he delved further into, you know, his talents.
and he delved further into his character, which I think was a huge deal. I think he needed this. He needed to get that serious side versus the lighthearted yeet yeet yeet, and he really pulled it off tonight.
And then at the end, Jimmy came out and, you know, was like, "Hey man, you know, you did it, yada yada yada." You know, and they walked out together.
Up the
You know,
stairs.
he did it. You know, he avenged what Gunther did to Jimmy. You know, Jimmy was there to support him and hand him the title and just be like, you know, you finally made it.
Yeah, that was a heartwarming moment. Oh my God,
I I, I personally give that match an A. I
absolutely.
think that no matter what was going to happen in the next match, and even the, you know,
The remainder of the night.
yeah, with the exception of the the
The,
main event, I really didn't expect any other match to put up a fight.
no,
I
I
really
didn't
didn't,
either.
and I wasn't even sure the triple threat could. But just it being the main event with those three guys, you know.
Anything's possible.
But I feel like they both brought their A game. They both put on a great show. There were fantastic moments. I found out that there's a new move I didn't know about called the dinosaur dropkick.
Michael Cole kept calling Gunther's drop kick the dinosaur drop kick.
I had never heard that until
I've
tonight.
never heard that term.
I was so confused. But what about you?
I absolutely A. It was a
Okay,
phenomenal match.
stop pretending to be a Canadian and tell me what you give it.
I give it an A. A.
Okay.
No, it was a phenomenal match from start to finish. I was enthralled, and just like you, I wasn't sure anything else throughout the night would stand up to it. I quite honestly, I would not have wanted to be in the next match to follow that.
And that's something I think it was Jericho always said. You want to be in the first match or the last match because any match in between those is, you know, you might as well call it suicide because you're not going to be what people really talk about or remember. But I mean, I don't agree with that completely, but I guess
From a standpoint of the performer, yeah, you want to be first or last because that's what people typically remember, anyways. As a martial
otherwise you
artist,
kind of just sort of fade into the infinite.
abyss.
Um,
I'm a martial artist, and as a judge at tournaments, I will tell you that it's absolutely true. You either want to be first or last, or if you're performing, you want the first thing you do and the last thing you do to be the most impressive. Everything else in between is kind of filler.
I already mentioned, you know, the parts that really stuck out.
Stuck out?
That, thank you. um, the eye popping, jaw dropping moments for me were Jay's scoop slam and power bomb, the things that came out of nowhere, and just his sheer dominance during parts of that match.
Yeah,
For
like
you,
for
what
me,
stood out? And it was like, you know, oh my god.
what stood out to me was in the final vignette, like as we were getting toward the end of the match, Gunther and Jay just going back and forth with, chop punch, chop punch, chop punch, and then out of nowhere, Jay Uso threw that huge, devastating clothesline, and that's kind of what kicked off Jay's finishes with all of the super kicks, the power bomb, the
Honestly,
Uso splashes.
The
in the
clothesline
sleeper.
was almost like a haymaker version of a clothesline.
It reminded me of Clothesline from Hell.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, it was very very similar. I mean, it took me back to that. I was like, "Oh my god. That was brutal."
And for the size discrepancy, he was very much like, the Rey Mysterio versus, like a Big Show from, I guess, if because we're in Vegas. They are, we aren't, we're not. If you were a betting man, he would not be the top choice.
He would not be in the main event if you're a betting guy,
He
but
wasn't.
you would not be in a world title match. You would not be anywhere near it. So yeah, that for
Major
me,
underdog.
yeah, that for me did it. Like the way he stood toe to toe with Gunther and just hit him so hard with that freaking clothesline, and then he power bombs him. I mean, that's when I started geeking out.
Uh, I don't know if you remember this, but I was like, when he hit the scoop slam, I was like, what the fuck? He don't do that.
Well, remember he tried it once, and Gunther fell on top of him, and then we go through a little bit more, and then he picked him up and slammed him. It's like, oh, okay.
I was blown away. I could not believe I just witnessed that. And then the power bomb, like,
Yeah, the power bomb. I was already starting to get into a frenzy, man. It was so exciting.
like I said, moments like that where guys do something and you're just like, they don't do that.
Right.
I love that. That's why, I mean, WrestleMania 35 kind of stands out to me in a lot of ways. Um, but it's the moments where people that you aren't expecting to impress you, and you hang on to that because you're like, wow, I didn't think that they could do that, but they did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to keep my eye on them, and then you remember that later on.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I don't remember much about WrestleMania 34. It was a major disappointment to me. I know, it was, Undertaker versus Cena in that squash.
Yeah.
I remember, bits and parts, but I can't tell you moments like Finn Balor powerballing Bobby Lashley. I can't tell you a match that stood out to me like Tony Nese versus Buddy Murphy,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
agree. I totally agree.
or Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins winning the tag team titles at WrestleMania 35. I can't tell you that about that card because nothing about that card really stood out to me as being out of the ordinary or special.
Yeah.
This was one of those things.
This was incredibly special. So
Now,
moving on, the next match would have been the New Day and
the War
the War
Raiders,
Raiders.
which started off a little interesting. Um, One thing back to Jay and Gunther real quick. Entrances big deal for me at WrestleMania.
Big deal for me at WrestleMania.
I have to give both of them credit because they both did so much without really changing much. Jey Uso, he comes in from the stairwell,
Still did.
and he just had um, people spread out along the ramp waving yeet flags.
And he had a UFC fighter who was also a producer, a record producer,
Yeah,
up at the top of the stage playing the music.
yeah, and it was it wasn't big and extravagant, but it was still something special to WrestleMania
Yeah,
that he didn't have in his other entrance.
it wasn't like over the top, but it was enough to be like, okay, this is good.
Yeah. And then Gunther, he did his whole normal white and black thing at the stage entrance where he walks out of the curtain, and then it changed the world title came up, and it was, red and black was like mixing in, and on the WrestleMania stage that they have this year, which I personally love, I think it's fantastic. It it changed his entrance just enough that him walking down, you know, arrogantly, defiantly, with just like a trench coat. Well, I mean, in his trunks and gear and stuff, but he wasn't naked under the trench coat.
This isn't a peeping Tom show.
No, he wasn't showing anyone his Vienna sausage. Don't worry about it. But I mean, they both made their entrance special without, really putting emphasis on the entrance
Yeah.
over the match. And the reason I say that is because I'm about to get to the New Day entrance, and I just wanted to,
Yeah.
give them props on that as well.
I thought that's what you were segueing to, because the entrances were really fun.
The New Day came out in, now Xavier Woods especially is a fan of like video games and anime, and he incorporates that into much of his life. But when they came out, it was sort of like they had an entrance that was mixed between Dragon Ball Z Saiyan gear and, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Gorilla Monsoon.
No, it wasn't Gorilla Monsoon. It was Giant Gonzalez.
Giant Gonzalez. That's who it was. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and even Wade Barrett made mention of it. He started talking about that.
It was like, what, WrestleMania 9 that Giant Gonzalez came out?
That
Wasn't it him and Undertaker?
Yeah, that was him and Undertaker. And Barrett made mention to that. He said he specifically started talking about their gear and how how part of it was very Giant Gonzalez-esque, and on the back they had a three-headed unicorn with one of the heads that was dead,
like decomposing, and they're like, it's obvious who that one is. Which, clever homage to their heel turn and booting Big E. Again, they did a lot
without changing much.
Without going extravagantly different. Like, it was special, but not so special and overdone that it
was ridiculous,
or that it was more, I'm saying the word special a lot, but it didn't overshadow their match.
Agreed. And the War Raiders came out with the Clash of Clans type of gear.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty cool, especially with the new like partnership, I guess.
Yeah, they had the Viking King and the regular King. I forget what the name they used. But I haven't played that game, but it was a fun entrance.
And I like WrestleMania. One of the things that I love so much about it, and we talk about it all the time, is I love the creativity that goes into the entrances. And sometimes I love when the entrances are big and extravagant, but it's not always needed. And tonight was one of those times where I was super happy with the entrances, even though they weren't over the top and extravagant in most cases.
In most cases.
And the first two matches were not those situations. They weren't the extravagant. They were just perfectly balanced between special and fitting.
Yeah.
And the match, again, really good. Kofi and Xavier have proven that they are highly athletic, and the War Raiders have proven that they are a perfect mix of striking and, especially Ivar, ridiculously athletic. And
yeah, a dude that big should not be able to do the things that he does.
I don't want to say high flying, but kind of high flying.
Yeah, I mean, he does some very lucha libre type of moves.
Like, the dude freaking cartwheels. I'm pretty sure at one point, if I remember correctly, one of them was running at him in the corner. He, held himself up and then did like a freaking sunset flip kind of deal.
Yeah, and
What would they call that? Would that be a Viking destroyer?
it could be.
A war destroyer?
And I mean, Ivar does that handspring, bounce off the ropes, come back and do the double elbow.
Yeah, and not only that, but he super quick and nimble for a guy his size. He spun around and kicked Kofi in the face, and it was like, I can't spin that fast.
Or get your leg up that high.
Sure, I can. I'm taller.
Doesn't mean you can lift it that high.
I can lift it that high. I'm just going to go to the ground and complain that I tore my groin. And
But yeah,
I can only do it
fantastic.
once, and then my whole body's on the ground.
But yeah, fantastic match. I mean, the two teams are absolutely incredibly talented. They went back and forth. The
And
War Raiders dominated a lot.
The New Day has leaned so well into their heel turn, sort of like how John Cena, was face for so long and then went heel, and it's like, wow, somehow this works. Same for the New Day.
Yeah, New Day
I'm
has
I'm
done amazing with this heel turn.
quite impressed.
I'm enjoying it. And I'm also enjoying the fact that they ended up winning the match and winning the tag team titles. A little bit
Kind
of
of by cheating.
little cheating, but still won.
And then ran out of.
Yeah, ran like they stole something. Which,
In fact, Kofi kind of left Xavier Woods behind, like halfway down the ramp.
yeah, Kofi booked it. It was, and I'm sitting here thinking he's running for his life. Like, hope you make it, dude.
It's like, running from a wild animal. I don't have to outrun them. I have to outrun you. But all in all, there were we mentioned a lot of Ivar moments. There were a lot of high flying moves by both Kofi and Xavier Woods. Quite a few, impressive counters, and honestly, a lot of good tag team moves.
Yeah, a lot of good tag team moves, which has been missing for a long time.
Yeah, it seems like ever since they signed the Motor City Machine Guns, like tag teams have realized, just how good those were, and they've brought them back. Like, what was it, 3 different times? They had either Eric or Ivar, one was holding him in the ropes, and the other one did like a bounce off the top rope and,
Yeah,
or I guess technically jumped off the turnbuckle and either stomped him or leg dropped him or something.
yeah. I mean, they utilized the full gamut of tag team wrestling. I mean, it was really, really good. It was really good to see actual tag team wrestling and not just, two guys that can wrestle fighting two other guys that can wrestle. It was really good to see actual team moves.
I have to give this match a B, only because of the fact that I felt, for as good of a match as they had, they were second, and I still hadn't come down from the high of Jay winning, and I felt like no matter what they did, it just couldn't measure up. And I could have potentially been an A had it been on Raw, or had it, been like third or fourth match on the card. But unfortunately, it was just,
Hell, had it been first, it might have been an A.
at least that's my opinion.
But yeah, for me, I'm going to give it a B as well. Like I'm halfway to giving it a C, but I think it deserves a B because there was a lot of really good tag team wrestling. The match itself progressed really well. I saw a lot of really good things. So yeah, I'm gonna have to say it was a B, and mostly for the same reason because match one was an A. I mean, it was stellar.
Yeah.
So it's hard to live up to that when you're following it immediately.
Um, it, Any particular spot that really stands out to you as being, you know, top spot or best spot of the match?
Yes, Eric intercepting Kofi coming off the, or was it Kofi or
It was
it was,
Woods.
yeah, it was Wood. It was Xavier coming off the top rope. Xavier jumps, Eric comes out of nowhere and just clocks him on the way down.
It was a forearm, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean it was absolutely wonderful. That one stood out big time to me. And then, the beginning of the match when the Raiders took down New Day with that, Eric picked up Ivar and slammed him on him, and then Ivar gets up and does that
Like running
body
freaking
splash.
crossbody into the side of the. It had to, it wasn't a normal apron because it didn't have give, so it had to have been an LED board.
Yeah, it had the LED board on it.
Um, yeah, I forgot about how good that started. And
Any specific
I thought
ones
it
for
was going to
you?
be a squash when I first saw that. I'm like, well, damn, they just freaking steamrolled the New Day. In fact, I think I told you I was like, did they just Lesnar the New Day
Yeah,
again?
yeah.
Um, my spot, I have to say, I think it was about 3/4 of the way through, and Eric and Ivar had tagged in. Eric tagged in Ivar, and they were doing that whole thing where like Eric tosses him up and Ivar catches him and slams him.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it was Kofi, and then Woods came in and like grabbed Kofi's legs and
Pulled him
pulled him
down.
down. Then they got Eric out of the ring and tag teamed Ivar. Actually, no, that was the final sequence. That began the final sequence, and then they tag teamed Ivar. Kind of beat him down a bit, and then that's how they ended up winning. Was they did their tag team moves, and then Woods lifted the leg up during the pin, and Kofi held the other one down, so
From
that
the outside of the ring.
literally all of his weight was being contained, and Eric couldn't get in time to break it up. That just that whole sequence was just so team oriented, and the timing had to be perfect on so much of that.
And it was performed so extremely well.
And then, like you said, that part where he did the freaking handspring against the ropes and double elbow, that was. And then the cartwheel, the kick. I mean, just the timing worked out really well. But that final sequence was, as much as, they're heel now, it was very New Day of old.
Yes.
And I think that's what stands out to me.
Cool, cool. So moving on.
The third match. Naomi versus Jade. Yes and no on the entrances. Like, the entrances very similar to the others that came before them. They did a little bit like Naomi had a wall of caution tape that she broke down and came through, and
And new music.
well, yeah, to go with her heel turn. And she had like a vest on. It was cool and all. And then Jade, I did like that they had a weather report. And I was like, oh hey, the weather's perfect. Let me look at this. I was like, oh wait, clouds are rolling in. I'm pretty sure I hear thunder. Oh, it's raining and hailing. Oh, there's lightning, heavy winds. Oh, I need to take cover of storms here. And then there's a silhouette of Jade coming down with lightning all around her, and it drops to the bottom. She comes out. She's got a little vest jacket thing on. It's cool. Not much, but not special. But then the match was just. I mean, it was good, but not great.
Yeah, it had some lackluster spots. I mean,
It
even the
start it
crowd was
started
dying.
rough, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Jade just came back a month ago. She had She hasn't gotten rid of the ring rust yet. I know that they do training and stuff, but that's not the same as performing in front of all these crowds, especially a WrestleMania crowd. And going at that high gear, not a lot of people can do that.
Agreed.
Especially someone as young as Jade. I mean, I
And
think she's like what,
as young and
mid-20s?
as inexperienced.
I think she's like 26 or 27.
She has only been in the WWE on main roster for what, a year?
She came back at last year's Royal Rumble, I think. I think that's when she debuted.
So it has not been long for her, period, let alone having just come back from an injury.
But that they seem to mesh as they were going.
Yeah, the match got better the further it went.
The first thing that like really stood out to me, Naomi doing a very creative, very well done is. I wasn't sure it was going to work as well as it did. An apron X Factor, where it was basically like Randy Orton's Hangman DDT, only instead of being off the ropes, Jade's feet were the only thing holding her up on the apron. Naomi had her head and did the X Factor
onto the floor.
And I'm like, whoa, I like that. And then another time, Naomi jumped. Jade caught her and
caught her in a suplex position.
Yeah, as she's jumping at her off the top rope. Well, I mean, she was on the top turnbuckle. I think she may have been standing on the middle ropes. I don't remember for sure.
I thought she came off I'm pretty sure she came off the top rope. And she was mid-air.
Jackhammered her from the suplex position that she caught her in. From a jump. From the rope. Holy crap.
That spot was fantastic.
And then there was another spot where Jade did a really sick-looking powerbomb to Naomi, too.
Yeah, where she picked her up one way, flipped her over, and turned it into a powerbomb.
And a devastating-looking powerbomb at that. Stuff like that were good, but the match... Oh, excuse me, sorry, I have the hiccups. The match as a whole, I felt like was... like I said, it was good. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
So for a match like that, I want the entrances to be memorable so that the match will be more memorable to me.
As for
example, Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 34. He came out and he had the bright blue, like the Game of Thrones, those ice guys. They have those piercing blue eyes. Mm-hmm. He had those lenses in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I remember that from his entrance. I don't remember the match. I remember it was a fatal four-way for the Intercontinental title. But I don't remember parts of the match. You know why I remember it? Because of the eyes.
Because you were locked in on that.
Yes. That's why I feel like WrestleMania entrances are so important. Because if your match doesn't live up to the hype, the entrance has a chance to save you and make you stand out.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree with that. All in all, though, I'm going to have to give that match a low C. Like a C minus.
Well, if high C is fruit juice, then what's low C? Is that like lemonade? Tea?
No, that would be like rancid juice.
Ew. Drink that. Other than the three big parts that I pointed out, those are my key moments of the match. Were there any moments that stood out to you as being...
Same ones, like that jackhammer, that catch, the way she caught Naomi in a suplex position, that blew me away. And she held her there for a second and then turned it into a jackhammer.
It wasn't even like a full straight up suplex position. It was like, you're in the process of lifting her up, suplex position.
And then proceeded to lift her up.
Yeah. It's like when Bobby Lashley would do the stalling suplex, but he wasn't... She didn't have Naomi straight up like Bobby would. Like literally, he had all of the weight straight up and down, so that he didn't have a person's body weight at what I'd say it's like a 2 o'clock position.
Yeah, like a 30, 45-degree angle.
Like that is not going to be easy to do,
That
even
was
with
the
all those
one.
muscles.
That was the one for me that stood out. The rest of the match, fairly lackluster. I was, even the crowd was kind of falling asleep at that point. Up until that particular move hit, then they were kind of like, "Oh, damn, that was good."
I
And
think the fact that that apron X Factor hit so early in the match, there was a gap between the OMG moments, for lack of a better term. Naomi did hit a blockbuster off of the steel steps that she and Jade didn't have the best timing with. Normally, we would call it a botch, but it wasn't really a botch as much as just Jade went down slower than Naomi did.
yeah.
You know, the timing was just off.
So all in all, for me, C minus. How about you?
Let's see.
C.
Yeah. And again, it's just it was good. It like it was not a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. I have nothing against either. I think they're both very talented. And had it not been on WrestleMania, I think it probably would have been a B because they wouldn't have so much expectation on the match mixed with you wouldn't have so many other amazing matches guaranteed to be on the same card.
I'll be honest. I think they should have replaced this match with the SmackDown tag titles. I really do.
I don't. I think if they were going to have the SmackDown tag titles, that should have been night two.
Either way,
It's sort of like how United States on night one, Intercontinental on night two, World
well,
Heavyweight on night one.
my point
Then you could have
being,
moved like the women's tag or
my point being that I feel like the men's world tag titles should have taken precedence over this match in some way, shape, or form. Either shift something from night two to night one and put the tag titles on night two, or just flip flop this match with the tag title match. I think that would have been a better sell.
I do definitely think that the SmackDown Tag Team titles. I mean, you have the Street Profits, the Motor City Machine Guns,
DIY.
pretty deadly. You have really good tag teams that I think could have put on a hell of a show. And I agree with you that I would have loved to have had them at Mania. The problem is, how can you showcase everybody?
Well, you can't, but this match tonight with Cargill and Naomi would have been a better suit for SmackDown yesterday. It would have shown better, it would have scored better because it was on SmackDown versus being on Mania.
Or do what they used to do and put a match or two on the kickoff show.
Something like that.
All right, so both C's. Next match. This one for the United States Championship between LA Knight
Yeah.
and Jacob Fatu. The Megastar versus the Samoan Werewolf. This one was interesting.
It was.
It started off with the Samoan Werewolf coming down.
He had a
He came
werewolf
out with a
mask
werewolf
on.
mask in Solo. Then he got to the stage, took the mask off, gave it to Solo. Then he walked down the ramp in a vest while Solo went back to the back, which really threw me. Because why come out with Solo at all if Solo's not going to like accompany you to the ring?
I
Or why bother coming out with the mask if you weren't going to wear it all the way down?
Well, I agree with the mask part. I think the thing with having Solo come out was A, to get his face on the show for Mania, and B, to, I guess, give the idea of solidarity between Fatu and Solo because they had been having some issues as of late.
Oh, and I guess, having Solo walk all the way down that ramp only to have him walk all the way back up the ramp is kind of stupid.
Unless he's going to interfere in the
Yeah.
match. So, yeah, I kind of understand.
And then you have LA Knight come up, and the only thing for his entrance that's really changed is he's driven to the ring in a Maserati. And boy, was it a beautiful Maserati.
It
Holy
was. It was
crap.
gorgeous.
Maserati, I know that they're fancy cars, but oh.
Yeah, it was insanely cool.
The weird thing is, he rolls the window down and then opens the door. What was the point?
The point was when he rolled down the window, that's when the music was supposed to hit, and it did, and then he could open the door and make his entrance.
um, but yeah, it was one of those things where a megastar is literally chauffeured to the stage in a Maserati, and then does his march down. It was awesome.
It was.
It was.
They did a lot by doing very little.
Yeah, and it fit with the music too. It like the whole thing just worked on both ends.
Yeah.
And once again, minimal yet special entrances that did not overshadow the match.
Agreed.
But also, the entrance wasn't needed to make the match great. That match,
it was destined to be great.
You had two good but not great matches. One was really good, one was just good, but neither were great. And then this one was fantastic.
It was. It was.
I would have to put this as the third best match on the card.
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna agree. Yeah.
Which unfortunately, I feel like any other time I would be like, that no, come on, that's undeserving. The things that they did together, I mean, they pulled some things out of their ass that I didn't know that they could.
Yeah, the big one that stuck out to me was that out of nowhere BFT.
Holy crap. He freaking countered a Fatu moonsault with a BFT, Randy Orton style. And here's the thing that you and I both were super shocked about. Fatu didn't no-sell anything.
Yeah, he did not.
Like,
he actually sold really, really well tonight.
Yeah. And look, the two of them, like Fatu's another one that is far too athletic for a man his size. But just the things that they did and their back and forths were so just fluid between each other. I mean,
well, and we talked about this during the match, like when LA Knight hit him with that clothesline, and Fatu did that very Mr. Perfect sell and did that whole flip off of it.
Well, and Rikishi used to do that too.
It was amazing.
And like when I first saw Rikishi do that, I was like, damn, that ass should not be able to do that. But the first person that I remember seeing do that, now was on that towards the tail end of his career, but was Mr. Perfect. He'd take a clothesline and he'd it looked like he freaking pretzeled. And you got guys who get clotheslined and they do like moonsaults and land on their chests, but ew. I think I may have missed a match. I think I thought it was after this, but I don't remember. We'll cover it next. But Jacob Fatu won the United States Championship.
Yep.
First singles title, or well, I still think it's the first title he's won. I can't remember. I think that the Tonga brothers had a title and he was given the second one. May have that backwards. I can't remember.
Or he won it with one of the Tonga brothers and had to hand it over.
Yeah. But all in all, very well done. The guy is super fast. LA Knight, worked really well at making the size differential go out of the equation.
Yeah, it
Like,
didn't seem to
Fatu
matter.
would, run and he'd just move, and Fatu would hit his head on the turnbuckle or the apron post. It really went south when he started getting hit checked and sitting at the turnbuckle.
Yeah,
And then he got
he got
Fatu
the
Fatu Fatu'd.
yeah Fatu.
Or what was that I said on the thing that
And then 1, 2, 3. So yeah, Fatu is your new United States champion, and he won clean. There was no cheating involved, no solo interference, no nothing.
and eh, see, this is the weird thing. Both men were getting cheered.
Yeah,
So it's in my opinion, where do you go when by the end of the match both of them are kind of faces? So I'm interested in seeing if Fatu's going to go face or just sort of like continue how he is.
or if he's going to go mega heel and take over what used to be Solo's bloodline.
Yeah. So this match, I think, has a lot of fallout potential,
It does.
or at least fallout storyline between both Knight and Fatu. They could either both end up being heels, they could flip flop, they could stay where they are. Does Knight now change direction and go after whoever wins uh, the WWE Championship tomorrow between Cody and Cena? Does he stay in the mid card? Like, does he start a feud with someone else not related to the title? We don't know.
I think it's time for LA Knight to move up to main event status. I really do. I think he is by far proven that he has the chops to do it.
I think he's like, second or third in merchandise sales.
So yeah, I totally think he needs to go main event status and start hitting some of those bigger matches.
And then, like with Fatu, does he go face? Does he stay? Does he go mega heel? Does he turn on Solo? Does Solo now suddenly, oh yeah, 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 no, no, we're good, Jacob. We're good, Jacob. We're good. You got gold.
Yeah, how does that play out with Solo since Solo was supposed to be the leader, the tribal chief of the Bloodline 2.0, and now, well, guess what? Fatu actually got the job done and got the title.
Yeah,
So how does this play out? That's what I'm interested to see.
yeah. So I'm gonna give this match an A, as well as the first match, because the match was good as in and of itself, but the potential storylines from the match as well. Normally I would have just given it like a B plus because of it's there was a lot of repetition. There were all the moonsaults, the BFT attempts, but it was an extremely well thought out, timed, planned, executed match with so much potential for storylines afterwards that I just can't deny the fact that match it deserves an A. I got to go with it.
So I'm going to give it a B plus. I am going to give it the B plus because there was so much repetition. There was a lot of filler type of movement. There was a lot of repetitive moves. And yes, it was extremely well timed, extremely well thought out. But I feel like I've seen LA Knight do more in some of his other matches than he did in this match because I guess it had to be, you know, streamlined a little bit for this. So I'm going B plus.
Um, I,
So the
I,
match that you were about to talk about,
I want to say it was after this, after the LA Knight one, but I can't remember for sure. Uh, Ray and
Ray Phoenix
Grande.
and El Grande Americano.
That was after LA Knight, right?
Yeah. And possibly one of the greatest luchador matches I've ever seen.
I do have to admit, I'm kind of glad it wasn't Rey Mysterio because I thought Rey had fantastic chemistry with El Grande Americano Gable.
It's not Gable. It can't be Gable. We literally saw a vignette where the reporter was talking with Gable, and the guy behind him had the Americana Grande
Now,
mask.
see, there's a difference between the man in the ring and the man himself.
No,
See,
no.
the man himself enlists Gable to do his wrestling for him.
I'm going to be honest. The thing I absolutely love about El Grande Americano was the vignette they played about him tonight,
Yeah,
where
the
they
whole
were
luchador
dubbing
thing.
him. They were
It was like,
dubbing him
oh,
in.
they make it seem like they're about to do a thing about Rey Mysterio, and then it's El Grande Americano, and
And they're
he's
dubbing
speaking
his voice.
English, and they're dubbing him in a freaking Spanish accent. It was great.
It was so wonderful.
And
I
then when
think
they're like, oh, they all turned on me, and then he's like, in his hands, and it, you know,
people are going to hate me for this, but I'm loving El Grande
oh,
Americano.
I am. See, here's the thing. I wish that they would, just reveal that Chad Gable's wrestling in the mask and do a storyline. What I said, where
I don't want them to. I want to maintain El Grande Americano.
no, I want it to be. They know that that's him, but he is not the real El Grande Americano. El Grande Americano is the one who taught him all of this stuff, and he's carrying on the legacy of El Grande Americano. And you find out that one of the other luchadors on the roster is the actual one, and he is partaking in this for that one person.
I don't want that. I want.
I just think it would be funny because you could all the potential of Chad Gable and his athleticism mixed with a storyline of who's the real culprit. Instead, although
I get what you're
I
saying.
don't want it right now.
I get what you're saying, but
I don't want
think
him to reveal him right now because I'm loving this Cole versus McAfee and Barrett.
that is the thing that is making his character so great is the fact that there is that question mark. Is it actually him? And I think that is what we're running on here is the
My problem is they've got
it's clearly him, but it's not him. It can't be because he has a different character, he's a different name. Now, could he conceivably come out on on his show next week and say, I won at WrestleMania? And they'd be like, you weren't on the card. El
my
Grande Americano was.
my thing is don't have a storyline with him and Ivy and the Cree brothers, and then also have him as El Grande Americano.
He needs to be. He is there for Alpha or American Made.
Yeah, but I want him to be able to devote. You know, he is so underrated athletically,
He is. He is.
and he is showing that he does have the personality that he'd been lacking before. It's just I'm afraid that eventually he's going to get burnout because he's trying to do both of these
I don't
stories at
think he
once.
burns out. I think the El Grande Americano is a run-in dude for American Made and a in-ring wrestler, and then I think eventually somebody's going to be like, okay, here's what we're going to do: El Grande Americano against Chad Gable.
And then put someone else in it
Yeah,
at that point in time.
to try and show that it's not him, even though it is him. And I mean, it's not him. It can't be him. It's El Grande Americano. But I think that's the hilarity of it, and I
But
want that.
like I said, I don't want it right away because this is super fun.
He is a great comedic
But
character.
eventually, you have to evolve the story or it just gets stale. So eventually, you have to unmask him because that's where the story goes, or you just drop it. And
No,
they've been dropping a lot of storylines.
no. You put a title on him. You put a title on El Grande Americano. And then you have to see if Chad Gable comes out with the title belt.
um, but anyway, like I feel like that would be a good story, like long term, is have him be using like Rey Mysterio, not the original Rey Mysterio, and he plans on passing it along to Dominic when he officially retires. Again, you carry on the mantle of the greater wrestler. So when he is revealed, it's like, well, I was just doing that in honor of the man who taught me how to take care of luchadors, El Grande Americano. And he is here. And then you find out that it's someone else, and maybe by then they bring in someone else like Vikingo, like from AAA, and you find out, oh hey, wow, we have a way to introduce this new guy.
So yeah,
Anyway,
that's
we got
yeah,
sidetracked.
we got sidetracked on
Back to
his
I
storyline.
do agree though,
It's so good.
and like I said, Ray Phoenix and El Grande Americano, they put on a fantastic show.
They really did. Like,
They meshed well together, and I saw things between the two of them that I'm like, damn.
yeah, I mean, the way that they fought lucha libre style was outstanding. I mean, all of these little segments where they started doing their flippy
Oh,
and
and
counter and
the the 450 moonsault
yeah, that
that
450 backward moonsault senton.
dude, moonsaults are backwards. That's how you do them.
I know. He landed on him like a senton with his back.
Yeah. Okay, so moonton.
Okay, we'll go with Moonton. But yeah, I saw things in that match too that were just like, oh my god.
And that's kind of like what Ray Phoenix does. But having like what this is his fourth match, third or fourth
Third
match,
or fourth.
and you put him with a guy who has never really done the lucha libre style. He was a very grappling, you know, technical wrestler.
Hang on, let me cut you off there. That you're talking about Chad Gable. El Grande Americano was a great lucha libre wrestler who was on his way to stardom when everybody turned on him.
Sure. Ignoring the story for just a brief moment,
Can't. It's awesome.
just the ability for the adaptation from the presumed real life culprit of El Grande Americano, just I was not expecting that to work as well as it did.
And it did. It worked phenomenally. The match was outstanding. The ending of it, obviously, it ended in, the whole cheating metal
Metal
piece,
mask.
metal piece put in the mask and headbutt. Yeah. And then the flying headbutt from the top rope, and Ray Phoenix loses. El Grande Americano has a W at Mania.
And yeah, it's not for wrestle, it's for win. Um
So, what do you rate this one?
B. Because the match itself was fantastic until the end, which I thought was very subpar for the match that, preceded it. And then again, the entrances, it's like you had subpar entrances with a great match for a subpar ending.
Okay.
So I give it a B. Um, Again, some moments that are just. I will say that the ending was very well played. Like Ray Phoenix walking across the top rope and doing like a soccer kick to Grande's head.
Which he has been doing. I've noticed in the last few matches I watched. He runs across the ropes and kicks someone in the face.
But then he's like, my
Yeah,
foot, my foot.
yeah, yeah. And the announce team was right on it. They were like, "Oh, he may have sprained his foot on the landing," and then
I think it
I
was
think it was
McAfee.
McAfee said he may have broken his foot by kicking that metal mask.
Like, oh man, you're right. But it was well planned out, and to be perfectly honest, they may have had to just throw that together because you know they
Mysterio getting
yeah,
hurt.
and they said that is 100% legit. That this was not just they decided it. Oh well, we want to put Ray Phoenix at WrestleMania instead of you. He did legitimately, like, it looks like he hurt his ankle,
And he did
and
not have the clearance to wrestle.
because they don't have enough information to know whether or not him going out there and performing could have made it serious. But he was walking, so clearly it's not like oh hey, I broke my ankle and I can't even walk on it.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be like, oh well, it's probably just a sprain. Go ahead and go out there and you know do a bunch of flips and shit. Like that's not how you do things. Not in that industry.
No,
That
no. You
that's how
want
you
to,
end up with guys with career-ending injuries.
yeah, you want to protect your talent, especially the higher ups and the legends.
Especially the 50-year-olds.
Yeah, the legends.
Oh, hey, what's that? You're 50 and you may have a sprained ankle? Go jump off a freaking Titantron. By the way, do a stomp.
So for me, I'm gonna give this an A minus. I thought the in-ring work was wonderful. They did mesh well, even if this was thrown together last minute. And if the whole Mysterio thing is a work,
Now, granted, um, was it Friday? They did at least have an interaction, so it's not like they've never met. They had that one little like where he jumped into the match.
yeah. But yeah, A minus. In ring work was great.
Commentary was great.
Commentary was great, and El Grande Americano wins.
I still love you're just an idiot, Michael Cole.
So that takes us to Tiffy time and Charlotte Flair for the women's world title.
And
Entrances,
Tiffy's was fantastic.
yeah, Tiffy
The
had,
the whole stage turned into like a big Barbie house, and then they revealed these three boxes, and two of them were LED screens of her like pretending to be a different Barbie character, and
and one of them was her.
and they're all moving, so you're trying to figure out which one's legit. It was a little easier because she didn't have a big white screen behind her,
Yeah,
but
you could see the glass, and
it was still super creative.
it was really creative. It was
And
really well
it
done.
fit with her character so much. And I can't remember if it was Pat or Wade, but one of them referred to her as being like a buff Barbie as she was walking down. I was like, man, that is such a badass nickname.
I think it was McAfee.
Yeah, I'm just like, that's freaking fitting. And who would have guessed that buff Barbie would be so cool?
Yeah,
But super creative, super well thought out, fitting of character. And then, like, once she came down to the ring, she was just, it was regular, but her stage entrance was epic.
hmm
And then Charlotte,
Came out in a Rolls Royce.
which was very,
Repetitive.
it was, again, Maserati, Rolls Royce, not same car, but still, ooh, fancy, expensive car, be, chauffeured up the ramp, but from the other direction. So clearly she's from the other side of the country or world. She's from like Europe.
But she gets out and she had a wonderful robe on. I absolutely love that robe.
It kind of looked like, one of her dad's robes, but with like, a diamond mane going around it. And even her ring gear was very well
It was all like baby
designed,
blue and pink.
and it looked almost bedazzled, but it was very, flair.
Yeah.
And match was good, in my opinion. It wasn't great.
No.
But again, Charlotte, literally, aside from the Royal Rumble, this is her first match back after a year and a half almost.
Tearing pretty much every muscle in her knee.
And I don't really want to say that it was, a disappointing match, but for WrestleMania, it was a disappointing match.
I'm gonna go on record right now, and I don't care if I take heat for it, but this was the worst match of the night.
Yes. Oh, it was. Um, but just because there were parts where it was boring, because they were just like, oh my knee, oh my knee.
Well, and there were parts of the match where it seemed like they didn't know what the hell to do next. It's like one would be standing there for what seemed like forever, while the other one was figuring out what to do, and then you know, they'd miss the spot, and then they'd have to, get close in the ropes and start chatting like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?"
And I remember one time Tiffany was like running towards her, and Charlotte just like moved, and then Tiffany had to like slow down, and then like she hit the ropes, and it was like, wow, that looked terrible.
Yeah, I had to redirect, and yeah, it was.
But it looked like she was like going to like hit her with a forearm or an elbow or something, and like Charlotte like moved over a little bit. In Tiff had the momentum, so it was like she had to keep going. But if she kept going at full speed, she would hit the ropes and it would look worse.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I give it a C minus,
yeah. There were some decent spots in it.
mostly Tiff.
Yeah, mostly Tiffy. Tiffy did a really good job. Charlotte did all right. I've seen her better. I did not. I don't recall having seen the patented Charlotte Flair moonsault at all.
She tried, but remember Tiffany
Yeah,
intercepted her.
but I don't remember actually seeing it happen. So I'm wondering if she is still fearful of that knee, and they planned out her not doing that move.
Well, and that's Big E talked about that during the kickoff. It's like you may be physically cleared and like able to do it, but your brain is telling you, you know what if I'm not?
Can I trust that my knee is going to do what it used to be able to do?
Yeah, actually, that was almost his exact wording.
Yeah,
Um, so, I mean, it's entirely possible, or it could have also been like usually when she does that, there's more than just one person. It could have just been she was saving it. I don't know. Um, the highlight of the match for me was Tiffany doing her handspring, cartwheel, thingy watch it elbows in the corner.
the highlight for me was the prettiest moonsault
I mean,
in the pin.
I'd already seen basically the prettiest moonsault ever. It was just the fattest moonsault ever. Werewolfist? Werewolfiest? moonsault ever?
It just doesn't have the same ring.
No. Basically, that's what he does. Is he does the prettiest moonsault ever, but it's not pretty.
It's werewolfian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's Fatuian.
that was the highlight for me. Tiffy winning. I'm really happy that she maintained her championship. I did not want to see Charlotte win. This was another match where we were overwhelmingly on the same page about this.
We usually are.
And super happy to see Tiffy walk out with it.
It's the only freaking title defense that was successful on night one. And honestly, I don't know if it's because the seemingly bad blood boiling
it may have
early
been
on. I felt like this match was just not worth it.
It was less than WrestleMania caliber.
Yeah,
no doubt. You gave it a C minus. I'm going to give it a D plus. I did not really enjoy the match as a whole. There were too many.
It was slow.
Yeah, too many blank spots. Too many. Hey, figure out what you're going to do spots. It just wasn't great.
I will say Tiffany does deliver a good spine buster.
Yes. But moving on
to the main event.
Roman Reigns.
He didn't come out first.
Versus
Seth freaking Rollins versus
CM Punk.
Rollins came out first.
Rollins comes out first.
Right. CM Punk has Paul Heyman in his corner. Rollins came out first.
All black.
Flamethrower.
With a flamethrower.
At that point, I was unsure of who I wanted to win just because, this was one of those matches where I knew going into it that there were nearly infinite amounts of storylines that you could spin from the result. So I'm like, if Punk wins, the whole Heyman Roman thing, does Roman take Heyman back? Does Heyman stay with Punk? Does Punk winning cause Roman and Rollins to feud more because Rollins blames Roman? That's just from him winning.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, I don't know who I want to win because I don't know which storyline I want to see happen out of the ones that I'm imagining in my head. Then he came out with a flamethrower, and I'm like, yep, I want him to win.
And in his song, when it says burn it down, he starts throwing the flames up toward the WrestleMania sign, and it starts flaming.
I'm just a bit of a pyromaniac, so I'm sorry. The fire, I was like, hey.
But then something peculiar happened. The
power
went completely out. Like the screen went black.
But the music was still going, so the power didn't go out.
Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Then Rollins turned into, like, the spotlight was on him. He was in all white. It's like, whoa. He just turned into the yin.
He turned into the Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker in all white.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. Except for the difference was he was raising up as if he was like, literally rising up to put an end to the evil. That was a fantastic everything.
Yeah.
During that match.
So Rollins comes down, gets in the ring.
Then Roman comes out by himself, and he is also in black and white, which I thought was kind of cool. He had the shoes and bracelets that were a mixture of white and black, and then
wrist straps,
black pants. Were super cool. They, the white parts had like black tribal on them.
Yeah.
I wish I had a pair. But then Punk comes down to a live performance of Cult of Personality by The Color Purple.
In living color.
That Color Purple was the
The movie
yeah.
and the book.
Well,
But
I think you could tell by the look on my face. I was like, that's not right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, a live
I thought that was
performance.
so cool. It
It
was like
was
uh you hear this like weird noise and I'm like, what's that? And you're like, it's a live performance.
because the dude was he was doing he was ripping a guitar solo that had nothing to do with Cult of Personality yet. But as soon as I saw the guitar solo start playing, I was like, live performance.
Um but they had also played a vignette of Punk's like, whole journey and how he started in WWE and where he is now, and they played his original theme music,
From
you
the
know,
Second City Saint.
Through the Fire by Killswitch Engage, and it was a very cool for
Vignette.
full circle moment. And then you're like, man, why are they playing one for him but no one else?
Yeah, Seth and Roman didn't get a vignette.
But
He
it
gets
was
one.
but it was because they were setting up the instruments on the stage, and that was distracting the viewers.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the arena, everyone was seeing, but
So
that was a cool reveal.
then Punk comes out with the band playing, gives hugs to a couple of them on the way out, takes a picture with the lead singer.
Well, apparently they became good friends,
Yeah.
because of him using the music and everything.
And he comes down with Paul Heyman.
And honestly, I am inclined to say that this was the best match of the night. I'm torn, but just because of the way that those three played off of each other, I'm inclined to give it to them over
Jay
Gunther
and
and Jay.
Gunther. Yeah. I am too. Like I don't think there's any question. This was the best match of the night. There was so much that transpired in this match, so much to unpack just from it. Like it
And
was
the way it even started, they're all just sort of staring at each other, and like Punk has this huge grin on his face, and then like Rollins is just sort of glaring, and Roman's sort of like going back and forth trying to figure out who he wants to strike first. There's just so much tension to start off.
and Rollins starts out by, you know, trying to talk Roman Reigns into ganging up on CM Punk, saying he's the problem. We take care of him, and that's it. And Roman hits him, and that's where the match starts.
And then, funny enough, he tries the same thing later in the match, and then like Roman kind of like hints like, you know what, fine, and then hits him again.
Yeah, he was like, fine, get him up. Like he was going to do the old Shield power bomb with Rollins picking the dude up for him,
Called it
and
though.
then he uppercuts Rollins.
That like throat chop
Yeah,
uppercut thing that he does. I'm not even entirely sure what to call it.
I was like, he's going to hit Rollins.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, at that point, both announce tables had been cleared off, and I told you, I was like, he's going to powerbomb both of them separately.
Yeah,
And
he power bombed both of them separately
I
through the
got
tables.
I got the order wrong, but I was right about the end result. I thought he was going to like spear them both, powerbomb Rollins, then powerbomb Punk. Instead, he just smacked the shit out of Rollins, powerbomb Punk, and then powerbomb Rollins. But before that, the guys put on a clinic in the ring. They used each other's moves. They brought out all of the moves in their arsenal, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they pulled out all the stops. Each guy hit each guy with their finisher.
Or one of their finishers, at least.
At least one.
Like Punk didn't hit the Anaconda Vice on Rollins, but he did on Roman twice. Both guys got hit with a go to sleep. Rollins never got a Superman punch, but Punk did. They both got speared.
They both got pedigreed.
Both got stomped.
Both got stomped.
Hell, Punk even stomped
Reigns.
I knew he stomped one of them,
He stomped Reigns.
and it was just there was just so much, and each one had a turn being on top with the other two laying down,
Yeah.
and it was you had no idea. So many close calls,
And
so many near falls.
all the while, Heyman is in the background. And you remarked to
He
this.
was one of my favorites.
You remarked to this, but he is by far one of the best actors in the entire roster. Like him sitting back there and his facial expression and his emotional awareness.
And at one point during one of the kickouts, he's sitting over on the steel steps, like
Looking like he's saying,
by
"Oh
the
my
announce
god."
tables, and he's just like he's got this look on his face,
Like he's completely drained.
can we just end this already? At one point, it looked like he was holding his chest, like he was having a heart attack. I mean, this guy, like almost after every like big moment per se, where like they hit a big move,
Every big spot.
I want him to pan to Heyman because I want to see what look he's giving. And I mentioned to you during one part, it was I want to say it was Punk trying to pin Rollins, and Rollins kicked out, and I was like, did you notice that Heyman did not react?
Yes.
And I'm just like, oh, this is good. I knew at that moment that something special was going to happen at the end because Punk not or Heyman not reacting to Punk not beating Rollins. I could understand if it was Reigns,
Yeah.
but when Punk not being able to pin Rollins and he was stone faced, I knew that they had a good ending planned. And boy, ooh. Another thing I called, by the way.
Speaking of the ending,
So, at one point in, I don't want to say, at this point,
Reigns
the
hit
last 15 minutes of the actual show, Punk goes to go to sleep on Rollins. And as he's doing that, Roman gets up. He hits the go to sleep on Rollins.
Roman
and as he
spears
does,
Punk.
Rollins falls back against the ropes. Roman spears Punk, and as Rollins comes back, he hits a stomp on Roman and goes down.
All three of them are down on the mat.
And then you see Paul Heyman just, it looks like he's had enough and he's leaving. But he stops, he turns and looks, and for a second you think he's staring at the Ulafala. But then he grabs a steel chair. He walks over to the ring apron, he's holding the steel chair, and you're like, where's he going to slide it?
And Roman's head comes up and he says, "Come on, give it to me."
And at first the camera's like right in between them, so it's like, is he going to put it between and have them fight over it? Is he going to pick somebody? And he gives it to Punk, and Roman did a great job of looking just dejected and feeling betrayed. Punk starts laughing.
Heyman
gets up.
in the ring.
Heyman gets in the ring, and he looks to be mouthing off. Punk steps up to hit Roman with the chair. Low blow
from Heyman
to Punk. And again, I just, I'm proud of this. I called this entire sequence.
You did, no doubt.
From like as it's going, and it's not overly fun when you can predict it, but in this moment it was, because it was something that in that moment I truly wanted, because I thought it would be the best possible outcome, and it happened. Then Heyman starts yelling at Punk. He said, "You made me choose.
You made me do this."
He picked up the chair, went over to Roman, hands him the chair, and says, "I acknowledge you, my tribal chief." Roman is loving it. He's laughing. He takes the chair, he goes and he hits Punk with it. And
2 or 3 times.
and then Heyman says, you know, look, my tribal chief. And he's pointing to Rollins and he says, you have the opportunity to do to him what he did to you,
It's right
whatever.
there. It's right within your grasp.
And then Roman goes to hit Rollins in the back with a chair. Low blow.
Low blow.
Gets hit in the nuts by Paul Heyman. And then Paul Heyman even like wriggles his arm around, like,
to make sure he got everything.
He has to really make sure he injured those tribal jewels.
And then
Roman goes down. Rollins isn't even looking, but somehow knows what's happening. I don't know if it's playing on the entrance stage or whatever, or if he just is going by sound or like the feeling in the ring. I don't know how he knew. Then he's just staring with his back to him. Heyman picks up the chair, walks next to Rollins. Rollins puts his hand out. Heyman puts the chair in his hand. He hits Roman with it, stomps, pin. Seth Rollins wins the triple threat match. And then he and Heyman walk up the ramp, stop, shake hands, and then exit. Holy crap. And again, I have to say, calling that, he's siding with Rollins. He's going to, low blow. Oh, he's handed his. No, he's going to turn. He's going to low blow him next. I'm just so proud of that because that is something going into this match I did not expect.
It was something going into this match that I did expect.
No, I expected him turning, but I didn't expect it to being that.
I didn't expect it being in that particular way, but I expected Heyman to leave with Rollins. As a matter of fact, I made a video about it on our TikTok, I want to say last week.
And I expected him turning on Rollins, but it was not because of, like how everything went down. I expected that because I saw a fan theory online where it said that, he would go with Rollins because Rollins didn't make him choose. The other two were like playing a tug of war with him, and Rollins wasn't. So that's why he chose Rollins to win. But then they did the whole, now you owe me a favor.
Yeah.
And then, Reigns shoved him in the face, and it seemed like Punk was just using him. It just, everything was going in that direction. I was like, that would actually be the best outcome.
And it would make the most sense for the storyline going forward.
So that's why I thought it. But I was expecting it to be a very solid, Heyman, give me the chair.
And he hands it to Rollins first.
Yeah. Or,
or he hits him with it and then hands it to Rollins.
Something like that. I was originally expecting it to be a very, he declares his choice, end of story. But it just, the build up on it was so fantastic.
It was a wonderful, wonderful match. Wonderful main event for night one. I can't think of a way to have capped it off better.
Oh, it was just, and then after that, Roman and Punk are just sitting in the, after the official show ended, they were still showing footage
Punk and
of
Reigns, yeah, and Punk
they're both
is just
sitting down there in disbelief.
Reigns, well, I don't know if you caught on to this, but Reigns was looking back at the ramp, and Punk was looking at Reigns, yeah, and I mean staring at him vehemently. Yeah. And so I don't know if I don't know if it was the stare that says I still hate you or I can't believe what I just did to you. This is my fault.
Either that or, he looked at him as sort of like, well, I guess now I guess I know what you feel like.
Yeah, it could be any of those, and I'm wondering now if there's going to be a storyline where Roman and Punk end up coming together because the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Either that or
And I've heard a rumor that Reigns is now supposed to be on his own, and he's going to be running a new faction with two other people. I'm wondering if Punk is one of them.
it's possible. The only issue there is Punk and Roman are both kind of, I don't want to say solo guys, but they're not like
No,
a
because Solo
tag
Sikoa
team.
has his own thing.
Yeah. They're not they're not really tag team guys. And if you have two main eventers in a faction like that on one brand, it's going to pose kind of a problem because one of them either has to take a back seat or go down to like the mid card.
But do they really? Because, I mean, DX had a multitude of people. They had Shawn Michaels and Triple H, both single stars.
Mm-hmm. But they also had tag team and
Middle card. Yeah. But, I mean, initially DX was just Michaels and H and Michaels were singles wrestlers, and they were after singles gold. Yes, they got it. They got tag team titles, but I mean,
But remember,
initially and for the most part, they were singles wrestlers.
Michaels was world champion and gave Hunter the European
Right.
Championship. And it was at that point, that was it. It was, you have the mid card title, I have the top title.
Right.
You can't both have the world title.
No, you can't.
And
But
they are not like Triple H and Shawn Michaels.
they're not.
At the time, Triple H was not a main event star when they joined.
No, but he was elevated to that point because of that.
Yeah.
And, yes, you got two main event talents that, if this were to happen coming together, I'm halfway thinking that this could be the start of a mega faction with like Punk and Reigns and I don't know, maybe even throw in another huge main eventer. Jey Uso
Huh.
or
I just thought of something.
possibly Cena.
There's supposed to be three guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sold out to the final boss. You find out that Rollins and Heyman are aligned with The Rock.
Or you find out that they're the only ones that know about this alignment of this other group with The Rock. And right now they play the bad guy because of how Paul turned on everybody. But later on you find out, wait a minute, they knew that this was going on, which is why they split and did things the way they did. Now Roman and Punk and Cena are all together with The Rock.
Funny thing is, both Cena and Punk had intense rivalries with The Rock.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like The Rock is now exerting his power over his old guy, saying, "Hey, you had your main event shot. You blew it. I can get you another one."
So, I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities that come from this. I am really interested to see the fallout of tonight's card. I'm also really interested to watch tomorrow's card.
At this point, though, I'm torn because obviously I want tomorrow night. I'm ready for the second match card,
The second wave.
and I'm a little disappointed because I'm also now really looking forward to Raw. And I'm disappointed that I have to wait a day in between because I want to see what happens with what happens with Gunther's like, oh, hey, Yeah, by the way, I was wrong.
I don't think he will come out and say that.
Well, I mean, but that's the point. Like, I want to know where that's going to go.
I do too. I want to know where the Punk and Reigns and Rollins thing is going to go.
Yeah,
I want to know where the Heyman thing is going to go.
same. And I really need to know what's going to happen tomorrow night, so I know where that's going to go.
Yeah.
But
But
all
we
right,
will be back tomorrow with night 2. And hopefully you've enjoyed this recap of night 1. If you have, drop us a comment. Let us know that you're listening, that you like what we're doing. Uh, if if not, we're sorry. We get a little long winded, but we love this stuff, have for our entire lives, and it's why we decided to throw on this podcast in the first place.
yeah,
Because we just love talking wrestling, and we hope to have a community of people that love it the same way we do.
yeah. Enjoy WrestleMania Night 2, and we will be talking at you soon.
Later, y'all.
Bye.
Yeet.